I am Karl Barth, and I've taught at Princeton Seminary for many years. I'm retired now, but remember quite clearly the years that have gone by. I first came to the U.S. in 1959, and that was as an exchange student. When I asked Karl Barth about this plan of mine, Karl Barth was very skeptical. He said, Mr. Fröhlich, do not go to America now as a theologian. They're normally quite a bit behind in theology, and I would not advise that you do this kind of thing, studying in America. You're better off right here. Now, of course, this was in 1958. He had not been to America yet, so I did not take his advice of staying in Switzerland at that time, but I did go to America, and I've never regretted this. I met Karl Barth as a very young student. It was in my third semester in 1951. That was the first time I came from Germany to Basel. I was born in Germany, grew up there during the war, but then moved over to West Germany in 1945 and started my theological studies at Wuppertal. Well, I knew, of course, I wanted to study under Karl Barth, among others. My interest was New Testament, and of course in Karl Barth's lectures there always was quite a bit of exegetical work. He always had sections in which he looked as an exegete at biblical texts, and this really excited me in his lectures. The lectures themselves were a little dry, I would say, at least for me. Systematic theology was not what I enjoyed so much. His German was strongly colored by his Swiss accent. I had heard him once before in 1946. At that time when he gave his lecture in Wuppertal, of course, there were large crowds listening to him. And I still remember that time that I thought, well, he's not speaking High German, he's speaking Swiss dialect. Now when I studied under him, I noticed, no, that was his way of speaking High German, and it was absolutely delightful because he had a very good musical ear, and so the way he spoke his German was always very musical. I liked that very much about him. He always was very insistent that the reports be precise, well formulated, handwritten in a booklet, which he had for this very purpose. So it was not that studying with him one could let up and take it easy. No, he was quite demanding, but he was such a good teacher that the system worked. He also examined me as part of my doctoral defense of the dissertation. The dissertation was not really of great interest to him. He did not read it, but he was examining me on topics of systematic theology. And I remember this occasion as a very relaxed, wonderful conversation about not just his theology, but the state of German and Swiss theology at that time. One of the occasions when we saw him at home was at his 70th birthday. I was at that time conducting a little choir of young people in Lörrach, and so we all came over early in the morning. This is what we had heard we should do. Later, his whole day was already booked, and he was so delighted that we sang to him from the garden. He came out then and greeted every one of us, and made a remark like, well, it's not Mozart, but it's most beautiful music, and it's so nice to have you young people come and do this for me. Yes, they would expect that what my theology is and my teaching has something to do with the influence of Barth. But there are some factors that prevent this from being very visible. I still have a very high regard for Barth, and theologically I lean in that direction, but my background is Lutheran. I'm a very strongly Lutheran theologian. I'm quite happy that he had some interest in what I wrote, and of course I kept his writings very much on my desk in the future too, in the future years, but was never really a Barthian in the sense people here in America understand that. No, retirement for me does not mean that I stop working. Working for me is the pleasure of being involved in theological work, in academic work, and in writing. So I still do teach fairly regularly, and I'm also working on a book in English on Luther's hymns, which really need to be interpreted theologically to the American public, and they are really highly theological. They're teaching instruments for Luther.